Hello fellow YouTubers, it's me Tomversal here, and today I'm going through one of my all-time favourite game franchises ever, the House of the Dead. I'm going to include as much as I can except from the movies and spin-offs because they are bloody horrible. Well, actually the spin-offs are just funny, but for now let's just go over the main games, and we shan't mention them from here on out. But the main games are amazing, so I'll try to show as much of them as I can, telling you an entire review of all of the House of the Dead games. Also, shout out to Tails Gaming for helping me with this project. He will be ranking his top 4 House of the Dead games before I give mine and the conclusion. So without further ado, let's review every main series House of the Dead game. In the main series we have 5 games as of 2017. House of the Dead 1, House of the Dead 2, House of the Dead 3, House of the Dead 4, and House of the Dead Overkill. House of the Dead released in 1996 in Japan and 1997 worldwide. In House of the Dead you play as an AMS agent called Thomas Rogan, whereas the second player plays as another AMS agent named G. You're investigating a crisis in a mansion owned by the DBR Corporation, which has been studying sustaining life form to raise the dead. Unfortunately, the undead have broken free thanks to the leader, Roy Curien, and are attacking the scientists. They've also injured and potentially killed Rogan's fiancée, Sophie Richards. It's your mission to arrest Curien, kill the undead zombies, and save Sophie Richards. It's a very gothic horror type game, but it's flooded with sci-fi elements. It has 4 bosses, one for each level, known as chapters in this franchise, and these are Chariot, an armoured huge zombie; Hanged Man, a flying gargoyle bat creature; Hermit, a gigantic spider; and Magician, the final boss, a flying metallic mutant type creature. It's available for arcade, PC and Sega Saturn, making it the rarest and most expensive of the game, unfortunately, because it is one of the best, if not the best, in a lot of people's eyes. Overall the game is great. Sure, the graphics and voice acting don't hold up and they haven't aged well, but everything else like the gameplay and music, hell yeah, they have aged amazingly. Certainly a fine work of art in the arcade community. House of the Dead 2. In House of the Dead 2 you play as James Taylor and your partner, Gary Stewart, is player 2. Set in Venice in the year 2000, which is 2 years after the events of the original game, and a man named Caleb Goldman has taken over Curien's plans, considering Curien died in the first game. He's set an apocalypse in Venice and it is your mission to arrest him and kill the zombies and save the citizens. There's 6 levels, each ending with a boss like the first game. Chapter 1 has Judgment, a giant armoured being and a gargoyle. Chapter 2 has Hierophant, a fish-like creature armed with a staff, and honestly the stupidest weak point ever in a video game. And I'll explain why. Its weak point is its heart, but it has these it has a chest that opens up and reveals the heart, but you can't shoot through the chest. So why did Goldman add the feature to let the chest open? It makes no sense. Anyway, Chapter 3 has the Tower, 5 giant snakes. Chapter 4 has Strength, a huge zombie with chainsaw and some daggers. Chapter 5 has the Magician making his triumphant return, and the final chapter has the Emperor, a very boring boss who just mimics the other bosses. It is available for Wii, Dreamcast, Xbox and PC. It was first released in 1998. The voice acting has aged even worse than the first game, and the graphics are kinda better but not much. However, just like the original, the core gameplay and soundtrack are awesome, and the story is gripping too. It has lots of multiple paths too, making it another non-linear game, and it's a very impressive arcade game for its time and even to this day. Here's where it goes downhill. House of the Dead 3 takes place 19 years after the House of the Dead 2, in 2019. The world's collapse has caused the AMS agents to get abandoned, but former AMS agent Thomas Rogan, from the first game, creates his own agency called the EFI. He goes into the EFI facility research ward to try destroy the Wheel of Fate, which is Curie. But he heavily gets injured by Death, the Stage 1 boss. A few weeks later, Agent G and Thomas's daughter Lisa go into the EFI facility ward to try and rescue Thomas Rogan and put an end to Curian and Goldman's plans by destroying the Wheel of Fate. It has 6 chapters, but they numbered the chapters from chapter 0 to chapter 5. Odd. Anyway, chapter 0 has no boss, as it's kind of a prologue. Chapter 1 has Death, which is a giant mutated guard. Chapter 3, 4... Well, this is where it all gets wrong, guys. You get an option to play one of the levels. You get an option to play the final 3 levels in any order you want. Anyway, you can either choose... on the bosses, you can either choose Fool, which is a mutated sloth, Sun, a zombie tree, or Death, again. Yeah. Why? Why did Sega decide to do this? I know it sounds like I've butchered it, but really, play the game for yourself, and then go back and play the first 2, you will be confused. Anyway, once you've defeated all of those odd choices for bosses, you move on to the final chapter, which the final boss is the Wheel of Fate, which is Dr. Curian in his resurrected form. A lot of people don't know that, but if you listen to the lines in the game, it is Dr. Curian. Anyway, it's available for the Xbox, PC and Wii. Also, I believe it has been ported to the PlayStation Move on PS4 and PS3. Maybe just PS4 though, I'm not sure. It was released in 2002 as well, so the graphics are pretty good for 2002, not gonna lie. Anyway, moving on. House of the Dead 4 is the first prequel, and it takes place in 2003, 3 years after the House of the Dead 2, and again, it's set in Venice, like House of the Dead 2. AMS agent Kate Green and James Taylor are witnessing the world's collapse, mentioned previously in House of the Dead 3. Armed with only a Uzi machine gun and grenades, they must mow down all zombies and put an end to Goldman's plans by killing a monster named World. But the only way to kill it is with an AMS bomb, so James, spoiler alert, sacrifices himself for the greater good of the planet. Again, has 6 chapters, each ending with an all-new, unique boss. And it doesn't go in order of chapter 0 to 5. Thank God. Anyway, chapter 1 has Justice, an abnormally large mutant human. Chapter 2 has The Lovers, 2 spiders, one with a huge body and one with huge pincers. Chapter 3 has Empress, female version of Strength from House of the Dead 2, armed with a dual-sided chainsaw, probably my favourite designed boss in the game. Chapter 4 has Temperance, an enormous sized zombie. Chapter 5 has Star, a human version of the Emperor, which was Goldman's parting gift. And the final chapter has World, Goldman in his resurrected form. It is available only for the PS3 and PS4, and it was released in 2005. The first main series game that is not in the arcade is named The House of the Dead Overkill. It's had many spin-off titles and is available for the PlayStation Move and Nintendo Wii. 7 chapters. It's set in 1991 and so it's another prequel. Chapter 1 has Jasper, a mutant cripple. Chapter 2 has the Screamer, an undead woman risen from the dead. Also kind of has like these, it's hard to explain, like telekinetic powers. Chapter 3 has Nigel and Sebastian, a freak in a freak circus who can control mutant clowns. Chapter 4 has Crawler, a giant cricket type creature that's freaky as all hell. Chapter 5 has Lobber, a fat mutant who lobs chunks of his body at you. Chapter 6 has Brutus, a mutant soldier attacking you with his rocket launcher and grenades. And Chapter 7 has Mother, a giant stripper mutant who gives birth to other mutants. Yeah. Anyway, from now, Tails Gaming will take over and list his top 4 House of the Dead games. Why 4? Because he hasn't played Overkill. It's as simple as that. Anyway, let's go. Number 4, The House of the Dead. Where it all started. It's still an amazing game, but the story isn't the best out of all of them. But that doesn't make it bad. The voice acting is not too bad, but not the best either. Thing is, I guess it's the least interesting story out of all of them. But the bosses and stuff are still good. The zombie designs were not the best, but still pretty good looking, and the graphics were pretty good for its time. But in my opinion, graphics don't really matter that much. Characters were good too. G was interesting and mysterious, which, by the way, fun fact, in the Sega Saturn version of the manual, it was implied that G was actually a cyborg. Unfortunately, Sega retconned this for the next game, but it's still pretty interesting that this was ever a decision. Even though it's my least favourite, it is in no way a bad game, and I actually feel bad ranking it as the worst. The music in this game is also pretty good, but in my opinion, it's not the best music in the series. Number 3, The House of the Dead 4. To be honest, I couldn't play this game enough. I was only able to play a few times, but from what I played, the gameplay was really fun, and from what I've seen on YouTube, the story seems amazing as well, so it earns a good place in my opinion. Also, the bosses are amazing with their designs, and the fights in general are just fun. I also liked that they brought James back due to it being a prequel, and Kate was also a great character as well. The music in this one is quite unique and fits the game. The reason I put it lower on the list is because I just really wasn't able to give it enough of a chance. Number 2, The House of the Dead 3. Guys, I really wanted this to be number 1, as it's the most nostalgic for me. But then I remembered that the music in the game is the worst out of all of the games. However, that doesn't mean there are still a few amazing tracks, such as the Wheel of Fate, Biolab, and the Final Chapter song. Other than that, the soundtrack is still good, but honestly, it's really bland. Some of them just don't stick out. Other than that, I thought the story was gripping. I thought the bosses were unique too, and the Wheel of Fate fight was a great final boss, and actually might be my favourite out of all the games, although Magician from House of the Dead 1 would come at second best. The zombie designs in this one were pretty good too, and the voice acting was actually good for once, so that's another point. Although I like this game so much, I might be biased towards this game because of nostalgia. Number 1, House of the Dead 2. I know the voice acting in this game is hilariously bad, and so are some of the lines themselves, honestly. But I think that adds a little bit of the charm to the game, because it is so bad it is actually good. The music from a game is amazing and in my opinion is the best in the franchise, which is actually a really big point for me. The bosses and the zombies had really good designs, even with the just okay graphics for the time. And actually the boss fights in general were just lots of fun and I thought they were pretty unique as well. The ending was satisfying and managed to be a little sad at the same time with the beautiful music, and the story is pretty good too, and the setting and characters are just really, really cool and good. So unique of a game. My conclusion, even if I rank some of them lower, you should definitely try all of the franchise games at least once. They are all amazing, so yeah, just give each one of them a shot. Thank you, Tomversal, for having me. Stay epic, Tomversal. Bye. Thank you, Tails. Overall, the series is great, with not a single bad game. It's a shame Sega never returns to the franchise, as they are clearly aware of it by making new models of Kirin's Mansion in the All-Star Racing games. But Sega really should return to the franchise. I think they will eventually. But anyway, how would I rank these games? Up at number 5, The House of the Dead 3. For me, it just didn't have the charm of The House of the Dead. Though it's still a good game, the shotgun and the soundtrack do not hold up to the prior pistol and the soundtracks of the previous games. The graphics and voice acting are actually good, but if there's anything the first game showed us, is that they are not needed to make a great game. This game, however, is still an okay shooter, but it doesn't feel at all like The House of the Dead to me. Number 4, House of the Dead Overkill. Like House of the Dead 3, this game doesn't have the feeling of The House of the Dead. However, unlike House of the Dead 3, the weapons are player's choice, and the soundtrack and engine are actually great. It has a different charm and is very funny but somewhat offensive. If you have a Wii or PlayStation Move, get this game. Though it doesn't feel like House of the Dead, it is still a great game, and I recommend it. Number 3, The House of the Dead 2. Well, I hate to see this game so low, but that doesn't make it bad. House of the Dead 2 is terrific. Sure, some things do not hold up, but come on, the game is so damn fun and tense. The bosses are great, unlike House of the Dead 1 and even 3 in my opinion. The soundtrack is beautiful, and though the voice acting is a joke, it unintentionally gives this game a so bad it is good vibe, which is part of the charm. What can be said? Though I don't agree with Tails on his list, I will say his House of the Dead 2 section hits the nail in the coffin. It's pretty damn accurate. Please play this game. It is amazing. Number 2, The House of the Dead 1. Incredible is the only word needed to describe this game. The satisfaction you get when you slaughter a zombie. There are problems like the flashing lights and the voice acting, but they don't ruin the game at all for me. The story is pretty gothic horror, but also good. Without a Sega Model 2 emulator though, I don't see anyone playing this game anytime soon, at least a decent version. Hopefully Sega makes a HD or 4K remake of this game, or maybe a VR version of the game. Hell, just port this game. Jesus Christ, it's only on the Sega Saturn PC. That's it. Anyway, so yeah, House of the Dead 1, really good game, but I really can't talk much about it because I haven't played it much. But from what I have played, it is probably the second best in the series, and I recommend it if you have a Sega Saturn or an old PC that has a disc drive. And my number 1 spot has to go to the House of the Dead 4. I've barely played this game, but in my opinion, the story is so gripping. The graphics are the best in my opinion, and the Uzi is one of the best rail shooter weapons ever. The bosses are incredible too, and are actually a challenge, which for the first boss, it suffers from being too hard. This game has a great soundtrack too, but it is techno, but it gets you so pumped up and tense when you're fighting a boss. However, I prefer the metal gothic soundtracks of the first 2 games. This game is one of the harder ones to get hold of, but if you have a PS4 and PS Now, it's free, and so is House of the Dead 3 and Overkill if you want to play those. Also, if you have the PlayStation 4 or 3, this has a bonus expansion pack called the House of the Dead 4 Special, which has a few new levels, and you can play as G. This game is not the first one you should play. For me, that would be House of the Dead 2, but play this game. It's great. Anyway, thank you for watching. A massive shout out goes to Tails Gaming. Thank you so much for agreeing to collab. My next project is the top 11 Mario Kart games. See you then, and stay epic.